Hey everyone, we are live right now for day two. Ali and I was just talking about some mishaps I had in the kitchen. Do not hold a olive oil bottle glass. Think that it's not gonna slip. It slipped out of my hand. So sorry for the 1 minute delay here as I was cleaning up after myself. We had a ton of great feedback about day one. We went through a lot of content for folks that are brand new. I know that might have been a lot for folks that are seasoned and in business quite a bit. It was a great insight to confirmation of how you should structure your automations and things like that. There's a lot to cover. Today is going to be very similar. We're going to jam pack a ton of content, almost 3-4 hours worth of content in a hour and a half window. One thing I want to make sure we do today is spend a little bit of time doing some Q&A towards the end of the session. So get your questions ready, prepped, ready to go. I see people are trickling in across the different channels. We are live right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, Twitch, and looks like Meta as well. So, Ali, welcome back. Thank you for spending 2 days with us.
Of course, always happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, if you don't mind, give us a quick review of what are some big points that we should take away from yesterday, and then we'll get started with today's agenda.
Definitely. So I think overall, the biggest thing that I would have you take away is simply that personalizing your messaging to the specific contact is critical. That is the general point that I want you to take away. Messages designed for a specific person are always going to convert at a higher rate. And so ultimately, we walked through what the process is that we use to do that and hopefully give you guys some great ideas about ways that you can do that within your own business, within your own sales process. The options are literally limitless. And ultimately, this can be something that you use within your own business or that you sell to other businesses who are looking for these same solutions. So whether you are somebody who's starting with HighLevel and you want to find something that's unique that will sell well, I think this is a great option. If you're somebody who's already in business and you're looking for a way to really maximize what you're doing inside HighLevel, this is also great. So I think there's something for everybody, but I would just really recommend that you don't just take this information and say, oh, that's cool. You actually do something with it. You try it. You see how it will work for you, because that's the only way that you're truly going to reap the benefits of that. And I'm excited to dive in today into the attribution piece, because this is, again, something that I'm very passionate about, something that I don't think enough business owners understand, and certainly not that many marketers understand from what I've seen. People who are utilizing HighLevel don't know that most of these options exist. They don't know how it works. They don't know why they should be using it. And this is something that, again, is a sellable option, because tons of business owners out there are very aware that they lack insight into what is working in their business. They don't really understand how to track. And this was actually one of the things that attracted me to HighLevel originally, was the better tracking options. By simply keeping everything under one roof, you already have amazing opportunities to do that you don't if you're stringing a bunch of programs together. But you guys have, given us some great tools, and I want to make sure that you understand what those are, but also how you can kind of take it a step further and really automate this process and get even better insight and data on what's working for you.
I love it. One of the things that I always hear about HighLevel is we're like a paint company. Every painter produces a different result and an outcome. The paint doesn't change. So the tool doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're HighLevel, and I can tell you there's 1,200 features that you may or may not use. And even if you're one of those business owners that just have a suite of 5 different things that you do, and maybe you're like an expert AI person that's using everything, only thing that matters is setting appointments and closing appointments and helping you build the business, right? None of us want to be so-called tech experts without a business. We're not doing this at a hobbyist kind of a level. I encourage you to run it like a business. It's one thing to know things, it's another thing to build it into a business and apply it and create a revenue opportunity so you can change your families. So Ali, what do you have planned for today? I know there's a lot to cover. walk us through your game plan, and let's just dive right in because we have so much to go
Yeah,
through.
absolutely. If you're okay with it, I'll go ahead and pull up my slides. I
Yep.
want to cover kind of what attribution is first, just the groundwork and the basics for people to understand how this is actually going to work. Because there's a part that relates to high level, but there's also a part that relates to what you do outside of high level, which is really, really critical. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. And let me know if you've got that. Okay, great.
Yep.
Okie dokie. So just to recap, yesterday, adding those 2 questions is something that you're going to want to do to all of your forms and anything that's bringing people into your ecosystem. We went through the GPT action steps, the different settings that you're going to want to use, the way that those work to create dynamic content, the custom memory keys, and tracking with trigger links. So we didn't get too deep into the trigger link tracking. I can definitely go through that today as well. Today, we are going to cover attribution. So, the source of every lead, the source of every appointment, the source of every sale, or the source of almost every appointment and sale, which we'll talk about why you still may not see some of that, even if you're doing everything right. And then we'll also go through just the spreadsheet automation structure and the workflows that I put together for you guys. You guys are going to get this in a snapshot. So make sure that you hang out to the end. We'll get that link to you. And we also have a resource guide that you can request as well. Now, the first thing to go over is just UTM parameters in general. So there are UTM source keys, and this is going to tell you which platform this contact came from. UTM medium keys, which audience or placement. You're going to have UTM campaign keys, which is going to tell you which campaign. You'll have UTM content. This is the specific ad or message. And then you can also use UTM term, and this is specifically to Google, making sure you know the terms that were searched that actually led to somebody opting in through this ad to begin with. So you have to actually use UTM parameters in your ads, in your content, in your email, anywhere that you are presenting links or opt-in opportunities. You have to use those UTM parameters. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to track. So when you bring somebody in, most people, I've seen most people not even pay attention to what brings them in, but even the people who are bringing them in and seeing where did they come from, often they're forgetting to check what happens after, because there are 2 different types of attribution. There's something called first attribution, and that's what brings somebody into the system to begin with. And then there's last attribution. Last attribution is the last thing that they did before they converted. Both of those pieces tell the full tracking story. And even with both of those pieces, it doesn't tell the entire story, because at the end of the day, in this digital world that we live in, there are so many factors that can go into someone converting. There are lots of different messages and ads and videos and emails that people can see that lead to them converting. And so it really is a group effort at the end of the day. If you're only doing, one specific medium, one specific channel where you are using that to drive leads, it's going to be a little bit easier. But ultimately, if you're doing several different things, you just have to know that there might be supporting pieces that actually help other people convert easier, but it's not the actual ad or post or piece of content that does it. So these would just be some of your touch points. A lot of those touch points can be trust pieces, video content that educates. Those are always really great. You may not see people convert from that, but it actually incentivizes them to convert when they see the next thing. So any link that drives traffic to your funnel, you need to make sure you have a UTM parameter with that. Organic social media posts are the same thing. So even without those UTMs, you're going to be able to see that organic social media brought this lead in. But if you don't know which post it was, you're not going to be able to do more like that. So everything that we look at with attribution really comes down to understanding what is working and what is not working, so that we can do more of what works and do less of what doesn't work. That's either going to save you a lot of money if you're spending money on lead generation, or it's going to save you a lot of time creating things that aren't working. And at the end of the day, if you do more of what works and less of what doesn't, you're going to make more revenue and also more profit. If you're doing podcasts, if you're doing partnership things, these are also very, very important. Cold email, whatever it is, you should be using UTM parameters. Ultimately, once they are in your system, we want to look at email UTM parameters. We want to look at text message tracking and also the AI generated messaging that we talked about yesterday. Those all contribute to what ultimately converted someone. There are different ways that you can create UTM parameters. There are free sites out there that will help you build UTMs. We have UTM building spreadsheets that we offer to our students just to help them do that really quickly. You can also do this within Ads Manager if you're using Meta. In Meta, they call it URL parameters instead of UTM parameters. It's the exact same thing, but you just need to understand what it's called, based on the platform that you're using. Usually UTM or URL parameters is what you're going to see. And then understanding how to build them for the things that are not paid ad related. So again, which ad brought somebody in, which campaign, which ad set brought someone in, which platform. So if you're advertising on Meta, for example, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's Audience Network. You want to know which of those three is contributing to most of your conversions. And then also the last thing that they engaged with. So let me see if any of this is truly necessary. I'm probably going to skip over some of this and we're just going to dive into the workflows because we do have a lot to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Ellie, as you're doing that, how much of this matters to a local business versus like a big corporate brand? Because
It
if
matters.
I'm new, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are, if you're a local business, if you're a national or a global business. Every single business is either spending time or spending money to market themselves, to get leads. If you are flying blind and you do not know what is generating those leads, you have no opportunity to scale that up. So if you are a smaller local business, yes, there's going to be a cap at the end of the day of what you can do if this is the market that you're serving, but you want to make sure that you are maximizing every possible opportunity. Now, the more you spend, the more critical it becomes simply because it's no longer just about opportunity cost that you're missing out on. It's about the money you're spending. And you could be wasting a lot of that money if you were spending money on ads or platforms that aren't actually generating any type of financial return for you. So you're losing money and you're also not getting the money that you could be getting on the back end if you were to put your dollars into the things that work best. But no matter what, I think time is just as valuable as money in a lot of cases. And just the speed at which you want to grow your business, you're going to be able to do that way faster if you understand where those leads and clients are actually coming from.
For those of you that are watching live, give me a one in the chat if you're following along. Are we going at the right pace here? Give me a two in the chat if you want us to go into the granular details more or slow down. There's a lot to cover, so I am leaning on the side of going fast, but at the same time, we definitely want to make sure you guys are all following us well here. So I'm looking for these comments. So type a one in the chat if you are tracking along well. All right, cool. We're getting a ton of ones here. Keep
Okay,
going, Ellie.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing we want to look at is the reporting tab that HighLevel gives us. You're going to find this on the left-hand sidebar right under reputation, and you're going to see that there is a horizontal menu here at the top. The thing that I look at the most is the attribution report. So you can look at these other reports and they're going to give you good information, but they're not going to give you the information we're really looking for. Most people don't even really know that this tab exists or they have rarely ever used it. So you're going to see a date range. You're going to see first attribution toggle or last attribution toggle. So again, this is the first thing that brought them in. This is the thing that they did before they actually converted, whether that was an appointment or a sale. And then if we scroll down, we're going to see session events. You are going to use the filter to determine what it is you're looking for. So typically, most people, if they're driving traffic to a funnel, it's going to be a form. So event type has a drop down, and we would look at form submitted. If you use surveys, you'd look at survey submitted. If you're looking for appointments, you're going to look at appointment booked. Then you also have two-step form submitted or two-step purchase. These are the ones that you typically would look at the most if you are using this reporting tab. So if I click on the form submitted, I also have source type. We can say, where is it coming from? These are things that typically will pull in regardless of if you have UTM parameters or not. So HighLevel automatically knows if something is coming from paid search, paid social, organic social media. organic search, referral traffic, direct traffic. Now, there are times when it might look like one of these things, but really it's another. Nothing is 100% perfect. That's why it's very important to do some of this on the back end to get as much data as you possibly can. You can also look at the URLs, specific refers or campaigns, but in general, I would just look at the event that you're looking to track and you hit apply. Now, when you do that, and I'm not going to show you an active account just because there is real contact information in here and I don't want to expose that to anybody, but you're going to see the source of that session. So was that referral, social media, paid social, etc. You'll see their contact information, the campaign they came from, and then these things here, these are only going to populate if you are using UTM parameters. Otherwise, they will just be blank. So even if you're using UTM parameters for every link that you have out there in the internet ecosystem, you're still going to have to go into this report manually. You're going to have to filter it. You're going to have to scroll through pages. If you want to investigate something, click on that contact name to see what their activity panel says. If you're missing some information and you just want to do your due diligence, you're going to have to hop back in here and refilter it and go back through it. So it's not something that is really easy to dig into on a regular basis and kind of keep a running total. The information is here though, and you can export this information. But again, we want something that's actually happening automatically that we can analyze, that we can use, and that gives us as much data as we can possibly get. We also want to see first and last attribution together so that we can see that full picture. So just know that this does exist. And if you're worried about, am I using UTM parameters or not? This would be the way to find out. You're going to go in here, you're going to filter for the appointment booked or the form submitted, and you're going to see, do I have UTMs in anything? Now, there are certain types of campaigns that might autofill some of this information. And a lot of times you're going to see campaign IDs or ad set IDs or ad IDs. IDs are really challenging to actually analyze. You're going to have to go into that platform and search for the ID, which is not super prominent. Most people don't even know how to do that. So at the end of the day, if you can't read the data is essentially useless. And that's why setting those parameters specifically is the first step, no matter what you're doing. So this is something that I used a lot until I just realized, man, I'm spending too much time going through this. It's challenging to really analyze in the way that I want to. So that's when we created the attribution system. So this has gone through several different iterations over the years. Initially, we just had different spreadsheets that were tracking appointments, that were tracking sales, but we were able to create something ultimately based on everything that I saw that my students needed that would make it a lot simpler for them to review and give us the picture that we needed to cross-check the data that was coming from the ad platforms, because ultimately we spend a lot of money on paid advertising. That's a big thing that we help people with. And if you are not seeing data that is easy to analyze on a regular basis, you're ultimately going to lose a lot of money, or you have the opportunity to lose a lot of money. We would also see duplicates that would come in because people would be booking appointments potentially several times before they would actually convert. And so this has just kind of evolved. This is the set of attribution workflows that we have created to address this. And these are workflows that I'm going to run through with you guys. Before we go into that, we talked yesterday about the emails and the text messages. So with emails, we do have options that allow us to track things through HighLevel directly without having to do a lot. Most people don't know that these options exist either, and this is a very, very easy one for you to go ahead and turn on. So there's two different ways that you're going to do this. One of them is in the workflow, which we'll look at in just a second, and the next is in the email marketing tab. So if you are using any campaigns or templates through the email marketing tab, which I strongly recommend that you do because it's a great feature, you are going to be able to set some of these settings. So if we click on campaigns, we're going to see this little settings gear over here. We have this first tab, which says attribution. So by default, it's set to 5 days. You can leave it at 5 days if you want to. I like to expand that out to 30 days. There are so many times where people will see something, they will click on something, they will not actually follow through right away. They'll leave it up on their desktop, whatever it is, or they'll circle back to it. So I like to have a little bit more of a window to see, did this person convert within this time period? And you can say, I want this attributed to all campaigns or just campaigns with products. So those would be people who are actually selling things directly through their emails. For some of you that applies, but for a lot of you it doesn't apply. So I would recommend leaving that at all campaigns. Then we've got this tracking tab over here. Both of these toggles should be turned on. So click performance tracking and UTM tracking. So when this is enabled, it automatically adds UTM parameters to every link in your campaign. Now, by default, the source and the medium will be turned on, but what we want is to turn on campaign as well. We actually want to know the specific email campaign that did this for us. If there are other custom UTM parameters you want to add, you can do that, but it's really not necessary. So I think these settings alone are going to help a ton on your emails. Now, let's go ahead and just take a look at the workflow side of things. And I did reference this yesterday, but I want to make sure that you guys actually recall what this is and how to do this. So if we go to our email, we scroll down under that additional settings, which is going to be toggled like this when you see it. You're going to open this up. You want to make sure that you turn on UTM tracking and click tracking right here. So we've got our email tab to track emails that are sent from the email tab. And then we have our workflow emails, which we need to turn on at the action step level. So that's going to be the solution for understanding which email converted these people. That's a great first step. Text messaging is a little bit different. So what we set up in this snapshot for you is going to show you how you can actually use trigger links for your text messages. Okay, this is a little bit more advanced. Not everybody has to use this, but I'm just going to show you what this could look like. You're going to create those trigger links based on what workflow they are in, what day that message is, and that the channel is SMS. So ultimately, you could end up with quite a few trigger links, but they could all be going to the exact same URL. Seems like kind of a lot to set up, but if you're really concerned about knowing what's the exact message that converted somebody, it is very worth the effort. So we then have to have a wait step that just tracks, did somebody click on this link? Then we're going to have an if else condition that says, this is the link that was clicked. This is the link that was clicked. This is the link that was clicked. If you've got more, you're just going to have more branches. And then we're simply going to update a contact field that is last SMS trigger clicked. And it's going to update it with the name of that trigger link. So just being able to save that in a field is something that will allow you to track that later if they actually convert. So this is something that we struggled with for a long time simply because we don't have the same UTM tracking or click tracking options on text that we do on email, but we know that text messages convert a huge percentage of our leads. And so this was really important for us to try and figure out a solution for. So if you want to use this structure, this is going to be in that snapshot for you as well. I'm happy to answer questions on that for anybody who feels like this is something that they want to do. But now we've got where people are coming in from initially, and that's going to be the UTM parameters on your links organically or through paid ads. Then we've got what is happening through those workflows, your emails that are converting them, your text messages that are converting them. Ultimately, if you are using conversational AI, or if you're using voice AI within HighLevel, you're going to be able to see the conversion reports on those as well. So that's obviously something else that can convert someone. And that's something that HighLevel already gives us the ability to dive in and take a look at. Now let's hop into our actual attribution workflows, and I will show you guys how this works.
Yeah, let me also kind of get a temperature check here of what everyone's feeling. Let me go ahead and back on camera. How's everyone feeling? We're going to pause for a quick 10 seconds and see kind of your feedback. This may feel like there's a lot, but these are things that Honestly, you set up as a marketing professional. If you cannot track dollars, you can't track ROI. If you can't track ROI, you can't track a relationship.
Absolutely.
And that's just the way marketing is, regard whether you are doing SEO, whether you are doing direct mail, whether you're doing flyers and door knocking, it doesn't matter. Everything, what you can't, if you can't measure, you can't really track, right?
Yeah.
So I would say get to the habits of these things no matter what. And a lot of us get PTSD from managing relationships with clients, and most of it is because you don't have enough data points to present to the relationship, right? So if you can get to a world where everything is tracked, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, you'll be able to improve average campaigns to becoming good campaigns to then becoming great campaigns over time, right? So hopefully this is insightful. You're not totally just intimidated by it or anything like that. So Ali, let's keep going. I see a
Yeah.
few comments coming in as they're trickling in. People are saying a little overwhelmed, but I'm good. A little fast, but I'm good. I have to
I can
rewatch.
go
Yes,
down
everything
at
is.
any point, so if people, again, if you guys have questions, let's go through those. Definitely watch the replays. The snapshot will be very helpful because you will already have those workflows that you need. You just need to essentially connect them to your different traffic sources or to your specific Google Drive, your HighLevel account. So it's definitely going to make that easier. But I do know that, again, because this is something that most people, they're not really doing anything with right now, it might feel like a completely brand new concept. But kind of going back to what you and I were talking about yesterday, the things that we're talking about, they're technical right now, but they're actually just marketing fundamentals. Tracking is a very, very important fundamental of marketing. And it only has gotten more and more important as the different entry points to someone's funnel or to someone's offer have grown. We've got a lot of different places people can come from. So I would say start with the basics. If you are not even doing anything at all, your basics are use UTM parameters in your links. Then, at bare minimum, you're going to be able to track those in the reporting tab of HighLevel. You're still going to have to go in manually and filter for those and download and just kind of review the data, but you're still going to have access to the data. This is a way to save you time and to make it even more effective by adding some of these workflows on top of it. So, really just kind of say, where am I right now? Am I not using UTMs at all? And if that's the case, your first and most important step is just to start using those. If you are already using those, but maybe you're not ever looking at that data, you're not using that data as a way to say, what can I improve? What is working really well? What's not working very well? Then that's going to be your best next step. And again, if you want to just do that within the reporting tab initially, you absolutely can. It's just going to be a little bit more of a manual process. You're going to have to do more manual analysis with that. But just kind of say, where am I? What's my best next step based on where I currently am? And once you're doing those things, it's going to be natural for you to take it one step farther and one step farther as you really get into reviewing and reading this data.
I love it. And the part that I keep thinking about is like even at high level, we're still figuring out all the data pieces and all the UTM trackers. I mean, like as big of a company as we are, every single channel has five different sources minimum that just comes in first arrival, last purchase. Like it's just a never-ending mountain to climb when you have a lot of traffic. So don't wait for perfection. Start somewhere, get the fundamentals going, see if you can track the customer's journey to purchase, see if you can track just at least one or two traffic channels, organic and maybe one source, and
Yeah.
just start there. That's it.
Exactly. And honestly, the smaller you are, the easier it is to start this, truthfully. And I don't necessarily mean your business is small, your revenue is low. I mean, you're only doing a couple of things marketing wise, or maybe, you're only spending on one platform. It's going to be easier for you to get in the habit of doing this from the very beginning and to have that data from the very beginning. Because if you wait a long time to do this, you're ultimately going to have months, if not years, of wasted opportunity that you could have been using this data. So I think this is just one of those things where if you see this as an important foundational element and you begin, no matter how big you are, you may not even think you have much of a use for it right now. If you get it in place, you're just going to be doing it moving forward. And that's something that you will always have to go back on. Because the challenge is, if you are getting a lot of traffic or if you are spending money on ads, you can't actually go backwards and get the data for what has already been acquired, because those sources might still be there. But if there was not a UTM parameter in that link, there's no way to go back and find it after the fact. So it's always better to have the data and not need it than need the data and not have it. And exactly like you said, this is, people have to understand that attribution, it is not a straight line. It is not a, I opted in first here, and then this is where I converted. Sometimes it is. There are absolutely scenarios where that's what it looks like, but there are a lot of touch points in between. And it can take 8 to 32 touch points for somebody to actually convert at this point. You're not going to know every single thing that led to that conversion. You're not. But knowing what brought them in first, knowing what converted them last, that's a huge piece of the story. And the rest of the stuff that you're doing, you can do what you can to track that. There are definitely ways you're going to be able to see that in the activity panel. That is the journey. You know, if you've got your funnels, if you've got your sites inside of HighLevel, and that's another reason why it's so important to do that. If you are sending people to external sites, even if you're using HighLevel's forms or calendars or surveys, that UTM data is going to be stripped out of there. It's always going to track as referral traffic. So let's say like I've got a standalone WordPress website and I'm using a HighLevel form on that. I could drive somebody to my WordPress website from an ad that had a UTM parameter in there. But when they submit that form, HighLevel just sees that it came from your website. This is the referral source. So having all of your funnels or your sites inside of HighLevel, it gives you that granular tracking so that you can see this is what they did. This is what brought them in first. But now if I want to go investigate, I can see that they also opted in for this lead magnet and they also opted in for this lead magnet, and they ask us questions about this live video that we did, or they commented on one of our comment to DM posts. All of that is now tracked. So the story is there and it allows you to go in and do a deep dive. You don't have to do that on everyone, but you do want to review that. And also tagging people based on what they're opting in for and the actions that they take. That's also a really important way to see what's happening in the middle. So if you just use tags, for example, every time somebody takes an action, just tag them with what that action is. If you go and you run a report of everybody who's a client and you see what those tags are, I mean, you can export that. You can review to 70% of all of your paying clients request the same lead magnet, even if it wasn't the first thing that brought them in. If that's the case, that is a big sign that, hey, maybe we need to start running traffic directly to this, or we need to start getting people this resource as soon as they opt in from any channel, because for whatever reason, this specific piece of content has a very high likelihood of that conversion at the end of the day. So it's not just about the UTMs, because there can be a lot that happens in between, but tracking in general is always something that will benefit you. And once again, if you need it and you haven't set any of this up, you will never be able to find it, or it will be very, very difficult and time consuming, and you're only going to be able to get some of it. So just start doing it and say, at least I know that I have it. At least I know that it's there. And just commit yourself to reviewing that at least once a month. And you're going to start to see patterns really, really quickly. And we also have AI, which is amazing. You can export your reports. You can upload them into Claude. You can say, analyze where most of my leads are coming from. Give me a report of this that just breaks it down. How many for the last 30 days came from this source, this source, this source. And then what about the last attribution? What is converting most people to actually take that next step? So Having the data, again, that is the highest priority, but having it in a format that requires less from you, less from your team, less time, and gives you an easier picture of that is always going to be a benefit. So start small if you need to start small. If you're already doing things, start looking at some of these advanced options. But I would say if you're spending money on paid ads at all, this is something that's very, very important to you. Or if you're preparing to spend money on paid ads, this is very, very important to do.
Ellie, I wish somebody taught me these things when I first started off in marketing like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You had to like go to an event where people were sharing their own internal like practices of how they run campaigns. There was no course, there was no webinar. Like here we are just talking about like last 10, 12 years of things that we've learned in just basic tracking, and I'm feeling for the crowd here, and I'm like, man, these are not things we're talking about, things that are real in real businesses. It's not some random theory.
Yeah.
So I hope you apply some of this and not take it for granted that a lot of these webinars and workshops we do here at High Level is just completely free and there's a never-ending amount of them. Does not mean every single one of these are worth a lot, right? Ali has her own programs, consulting, coaching, all kinds of stuff where she charges a lot for a lot of these things. So she gets flown into businesses for insights. So learn, sit in the front of the classroom, please. I hope you're loving this as much as I am. Ali, let's keep going. Let's get back to the slides. I didn't mean to
No, you're fine.
sidetrack you a little bit here, but I think these are important principles that we have to address.
Absolutely. Okay, let's see where we are. So we're going to start with
If you
the
can zoom
first.
in, if you can zoom
Yes.
in just a bit, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit tight, but I'm going to run through on the left-hand side what the steps are, and the right-hand side is equally important. So this first step and this first workflow is for any new contact, any source. If you want to do it based on forms or surveys or whatever, you can. But ultimately, it's good to know where every single contact comes from. So this is just kind of a catch-all workflow. There's a contact created. We are going to create a spreadsheet row. Okay, so you're gonna need a spreadsheet for this. In the resources that I've provided for you guys, there is a spreadsheet template that you can use to do this. Okay, so it's gonna have different columns on it. We need to just select, here are the columns that we're going to be doing. If you haven't used Google Sheets workflow steps, number one, they're really awesome. So you should definitely check it out. I use these in a lot of different places, but this is something that you just, may need to get a little bit familiar with. But ultimately, these are all of the things that we need to put in here. So we want to know what's the date that they were added. We want to know the contact name, the email, their phone number. And then we've got first attribution campaign. So we actually put two different fields in here, just depending on what someone specifically uses, because we have attribution source campaign, and then we have attribution source UTM campaign. So this is basically just a way to ensure that even if somebody uses one of those other UTMs, it's still going to track it. Ultimately, all you need is one of them. So if you know that you use the UTM campaign field, this is the only one that you need right here. Then we have our attribution source, our UTM medium. We've got our attribution ad. So the way that we do our UTMs is UTM content represents the actual name of the ad, the piece of content. I would do the same thing if this was a social media post. The kind of description of the post is what you would put in the UTM content. Then we have last attribution campaign. So it's the exact same thing. Where'd they come in from last? Ad set that they came in from last. Content they came in from last. Now, the rest of these fields aren't relevant for this first one because right now, all they've done is become a contact. That is it. So these are the fields that you need. And just so you know, because a lot of people don't even realize that these values exist, if you click on your little custom value tag, if you scroll down, there's an attribution tab right here. You can see there is a first attribution. These are all the options that we have for first attribution. And then there is also the exact same thing for last attribution. So that's how you're actually going to grab those values, is just by going into that attribution tab and then going into first attribution or last attribution, depending on what you're looking for. So that's how it's going to insert that thing into your spreadsheet or anywhere else that you want to see it. So I have email notifications for leads and appointments and sales. And we just have that last attribution right there at the bottom of the email. So that's a way to kind of eyeball it, as things come in without having to look at the whole sheet. And even just from doing that, you're going to see things over and over again, and you're already going to get a great idea of, oh, wow, this is something that's really driving a lot of appointments or clients for us. So this is our first workflow. It's just new contact. Right? Our second workflow, this is going to relate to people who actually have appointment-based sales processes. If you have a direct purchase process, it's going to be a little bit easier. You don't need as many workflows, but most people we work with, there is an appointment element in their process. So this is just going to be your appointment status confirmed. If you want to do it based on a specific calendar, such as the calendar that people would be booking as a lead, maybe you've got client related calendars, you don't want to track that. So just be specific about that calendar. We're giving them a little bit of time before we do this because some people may opt in and then they're going to watch the appointment booking video or they're going to check their calendar. And so we just want to give them time. Then we're going to look up the spreadsheet row. So the reason that we do this is because we don't want to add another row. We don't want to have a contacts row and an appointments row with the same person. This makes it harder to actually go back and kind of see the whole picture, and it gives you duplicates, which make it harder to track when you're trying to analyze this. So on this one, we are going to look up this contact based on the email and phone records. You can turn this on to create a new spreadsheet row if it doesn't exist yet. If you have somebody who opted in with an email and a phone number, and then when they booked, they used a different email and different phone number, you would want to turn this on. Typically, we don't need it on though, because we're cross-checking both. A lot of times people might use a different email, but the phone number is going to be the same. Obviously, there are circumstances in which somebody may use totally different contact info. So if that's something that you've seen, you can turn on this toggle right here. And then we're just going to update more of our fields. So we already have our first attribution and our last attribution in there. Then we've got appointment start time. So what's the date? Then we're going to have an appointment status. So as soon as they are booked, this is a confirmed status. And that's all we do for the second one. We just want to know this contact booked an appointment for this specific date. Now we want to know what actually happened to this appointment. It's going to do the exact same thing. It's going to look up that contact by the email, by the phone number, and then it's going to simply mark no-show if they're a no-show. Now this is based on the appointment status being no-show. That is what I would recommend. Using the appointment statuses is critical when it comes to your tracking and your reporting, because that's what the appointment reports are going to show. That's what your dashboard is going to show. You can move people into a pipeline stage that says no show. And if you want to make that a trigger, you can definitely do that. But no matter what, I would definitely make sure that your appointment status is always updated, because that is the best and most reliable way to ensure you know what the picture is of your appointments. We are also going to have an appointment completed. So this is somebody who actually showed up to the appointment. So our appointment status is showed. Again, this is something that you have to mark in appointment status for that appointment. This person showed up. Definitely recommend that you do that. We're looking up the spreadsheet again, and then we are going to have our showed status right there. So these are very simple for the appointment side. It's basically the same thing. You're just updating a different word. This is either showed or confirmed or no show. And then our next one is going to be for payment received. So this is obviously only going to work if you are taking payments through HighLevel. I really recommend that you do. Again, the beauty of HighLevel is that we have everything all under one roof. Not only is that cheaper, not only is that easier, it gives you the ability to automate based on pretty much anything that happens because the system knows everything that is happening. It also gives you the ability to track things at a much deeper level because they are interconnected. Yes, you can integrate certain payment processors with HighLevel. For some of you, that's more complex than you want to do. Ultimately, we've been using HighLevel's payment system for a long time, and I would definitely recommend that. So now if somebody submits a payment, and this is going to be for any payment, any product, we're going to look up their spreadsheet and we're going to mark, are they sold? Yes, they are sold. What's the sale date? And what is that payment amount? So there are some other fields that you can use if you have the need or the desire to do that. But these are the simple workflows that will get all of this tracked into your spreadsheet. So this is the spreadsheet template that is going to be provided in the resources. The columns are already set up for you. You don't have to set any of those up. And then you're going to be able to start using this. So it is important that you understand those little codes that are in the spreadsheet steps, because when you connect a new Google Drive account in the workflow, it's going to reset all of that. So just make sure that you screenshot what's in the workflow first so that you know these are all the codes that I need to put after the fact. Or you just go back, you watch this recording. We'll also have details about this in the resources that we provide. But that is a kind of a negative about this snapshot. Everything is structured the right way, but it is going to reset those codes when you connect your Google Drive. So just be aware of that. Now, this was kind of the more advanced iteration that we created, but how does this apply to the personalized messaging? So let me hop back into these over here. I think this is where we've got it. So on our appointment booked, oh, give me just a second. I'm going to stop sharing for 1 minute. I think I've got that in a separate sub account.
No worries at all. For those of you that are watching live, I'm curious, how many of you think a small business owner can just set all this up themselves? I'm not saying they can't. How many of you think actually they can operate like this long term, where they're managing and thinking about all the different sources of traffic? And remember, there's also customer journey tracking, like purchase tracking, sales tracking of how somebody actually transacted as well. That's another layer of attribution that you also have to put together as well. So, I think a lot of people feel like, marketers are there's so many of us, and a small business can just manage themselves. Well, in reality, as they get bigger, this becomes a bigger thing. And well, eventually, when they want to run paid ads, when they want to invest into SEO and AI and all this other stuff, they're going to want to have an expert on file. I promise you, the world of marketing is opening up even more with the launch of all these AI things, in my opinion. um,
Well, so something that we talked about a little bit yesterday, but I think it's really important for people to hear, again, whether they are just starting to learn about this specific piece or not. I have worked with enough businesses that I can say with confidence that this is a large and widespread issue. Okay. So if you are looking for your niche, a niche is not always an industry or a type of business. A niche can be your expertise, it can be your solution. And that solution can be the same thing that you provide to all different types of businesses, regardless of what they do and where they do it. This on its own is an opportunity to have a specific offer and a specific service that you provide that business owners are willing to pay for. And one of the coolest things about it is that there is real trackable ROI associated with it. So that is something that makes you very valuable to a business owner. If they can look at what you're doing and they can say, the results of this have actually allowed me to generate more leads on the same budget, the same ad spend, or close more deals without doing anything else on the back end. That is real trackable ROI. That's what everybody is looking for to prove that their service is worth keeping, essentially. This is something that can do it. And one of the coolest things about it is that you can set it up once and there's not a crazy amount that goes into it on the back end. Yes, there might be new sources that you have to track. There might be new trigger links you have to create. There might be new UTM tracking toggles you have to turn on for them. But ultimately, you don't have to be a lead generation expert. You don't even have to be an automations expert. You can be someone who helps businesses track what they are getting, where they are getting it from, and help them understand how to read that data to make better decisions. So, this on its own can be an offer, it can be a niche. Not everybody kind of connects with this, I guess you can say, like naturally. So, for some people, this is very interesting to them, or they get excited about it, or they can say, oh yeah, I can definitely see this being a great service for my audience. And for some of you, you may be like, no, I'm not really interested. But either way, if you are providing a SaaS product to businesses, if you are helping businesses set these things up, if you are helping businesses do lead generation, or if you are doing this for your own business, it doesn't actually matter. This is an important piece regardless. So you can include this into your existing offerings to make what you're doing more impactful, more valuable, more trackable, especially. So if you're doing lead generation services, I would 1000% make sure that this is a component, because once again, if you can't track it, if you can't prove the ROI of that, it's going to be something that businesses at some point will say, well, what is this really doing for me? Is this something that is an expense, or is this something that's an investment that's helping me get more than what I'm paying for it? And a lot of times the ROI is already there, but you can't see it and they can't see it. So if you can't prove it, it doesn't matter if it's happening or not. And even more than that, there are a lot of things that can prevent businesses from closing deals, especially if they have pieces of their system that are outside of your control. If they've got a sales-based process, you can't control how well somebody can close, but the better job you do of tracking your efforts, the easier it is to actually show them where things are broken within their system, so that you can actually consult with them. You can say, these are the pieces that the data shows are preventing you from closing more business. If you are interested in fixing them, here's what it can do for you. And yes, you may not be able to force them into making those changes, but at bare minimum, you can bring this to their attention so they have the opportunity to make the changes that are necessary. And if they do that, once again, it's going to make the other stuff that you are doing more effective and more valuable to them. They will see you as an expert, as a resource, someone who really cares about the business as a whole and not just the pieces that you are putting together. So I think no matter what you're doing, if you're doing it for your business or if you're working with somebody on these things, ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now trackable? Am I able to say with confidence what the results are? Would I be able to show my client, or would I be able to show my team members what is happening? And if the answer is no, then you need to have a tracking solution for that. And there's a tracking solution for everything, whether it's, texting a certain number, texting a certain keyword to a certain number, comment to DM things, and you can have as many as you want. Also UTM parameters, having different landing pages for different platforms or messaging or avatars. So there's always something you can do. But the question is, if push came to shove and someone said, show me what you're doing for my business, show me what you're providing, you want to have that data. And this is something that can give that to you. So I think no matter who you are, this is valuable, but there is absolutely an opportunity for some of you to say, this is actually the thing I really want to focus on. I want to present HighLevel as an opportunity to actually know what's happening in your sales and marketing for probably the first time. And I'm going to be able to be somebody who sets that up for my clients, regardless of who's doing their lead generation or, what SaaS platform they're on. You can go in and set these things up for them no matter, what type of account they are using. So just want to make sure that that's something that you guys really understand, because it's not just about your business. It's actually about an opportunity to sell this as a service to other businesses. So I think that makes it very unique. And again, just it applies to everyone. It's just going to apply in a slightly different way.
I love it. It's I'm thinking back to my old dental days where I had my own dental agency, and I wish I would have been able to tell my clients back then, hey, I brought in 200 leads this month, and I know they didn't close a good amount of them, and I'm trying to figure out why. And I'm like, well, you had 40 come from email marketing, you had over 120 come from Facebook ads, and you had some of the blogs give us 20, 30, and you want Invisalign, you want whitening, you want implants, you want cosmetic stuff. And it's like, I'm hoping for the best that they close customers. And this is like 2014, just so you guys have kind of reference. HighLevel didn't exist. Old tracking system, tracking like the way we had to hire a coder to come set all this up, right? The world of just going into a CRM and just setting it up in a couple of clicks of a button didn't exist. Like a CRM for the small business owners didn't exist outside of the big mega brands you see today, right? So the opportunity to me is unbelievable if you are brand new starting out today. Like
It is.
I'm gonna just stop. I'm gonna get off my soapbox here. Let's
Well, we
get
love
back on track.
high levels. Amazing. All right, so I'm going to show you guys this one last thing before we open up Q&A. So this is kind of the advanced component that ties into what we looked at yesterday. So this is the AI agent step, and I'm going to zoom in just so you guys can see this a little bit more closely. So adding in the AI agent step, again, this is a premium action, so just be aware of that. But if we create a prompt to let it know that we are looking to identify and summarize the last outbound message that was sent to this contact before they converted, this is where we can understand that specific messaging that converted them. So again, because of the dynamic elements that we looked at yesterday, let's say you see that a lot of people are converting from a couple of emails or a couple of text messages, and you want to look at the exact language that was used because maybe you want to use this in broadcast emails you're sending or social media posts or advertising. Because again, the messaging that works on the back end, it's also the messaging that's going to work on the front end too. You just need to know what that is. This is going to allow you to actually track that specific message because you wouldn't be able to go back in your workflow and see exactly what they were sent. You would have to go to each individual contact and look at that last message before they converted, which you can definitely do. But again, this is just a way to automate this process a little bit more and make it so you're not spending as much time digging for anything. This, again, is a more advanced step, but it is a really, really cool step that if you're not familiar with it, you should get familiar with it. So we just want to make sure that we're telling it the channel. So what's the channel the last outbound message was sent on? What's the last message itself? And then the key angle. So we talked about angles yesterday in terms of switching up your angle on your different messages because there are going to be angles that convert people at a much higher rate. There's also going to be angles that can convert individuals differently. So maybe a price focused angle might work really well for this person over here, but a case study, success story, results focused angle might work best for this person over here. So it can be individual, but you are definitely going to see patterns. So we just need to give this a prompt, tell it what to do. Low thinking is fine in terms of our model here because this is really, it's not a lot of logic. We're just saying, go back, review the conversation history, grab the last outbound message. And then our advanced options down here, we've got an output format and it's a JSON. This is basically where we're going to be able to take the information that this AI agent step is producing and get it into our contact fields in the next step. So this is what we're setting up. These are those fields we already identified in the prompt. Okay, these are all strings and then our description. So it's basically the same description that we put in that prompt. So you just have to set those up. And then you're going to have an update contact field step to get that information into your custom fields. So I think people don't fully realize how powerful custom fields actually are. There's so much that you can do with them if you understand them. But similar to what we looked at earlier, if you go to the little tag and you scroll down and you see this AI agent step right here, you can click on that. And then those three options that I set up in our response schema, those are going to be right here. So we've got our channel, our key angle, and that last message. If you don't set up that response schema, you're not going to see these. It has to know where it's putting that information so that we can actually select one and place it in our custom field. And so all of those things are going to be dropped in. Then you're just going to add those fields to your spreadsheet. So there are columns to do that in the spreadsheet that I'm going to share with you guys. You can do that if you're using your dynamic format, but also if you're not, if you just want to know what's the channel, what's the message that actually converted this person. If it's a hard-coded message, something that you've just typed out, if you see the same one that's working over and over again, great. That means you need to do more things like that through the rest of your workflows or the workflow that these people are already in, because you know that it's working really well. So again, that's kind of the dynamic tie-in where we're actually going to be able to track not just the attribution, but the specific messaging that is working for someone. So once again, if you are just starting out, start small. Start by using UTMs, using your attribution report tab in the reporting section to see what is working, what is bringing people in, what is converting people. If you're already doing that, either start reviewing that regularly and actually analyzing the data, or go ahead and get this snapshot set up so that data is flowing into a spreadsheet. You're going to be able to see it without duplicates. You can just see a list of these are all our contacts. These are the ones that book. These are the ones that convert. These are the price points at which these people convert, because it's not always just about number of conversions. You want to maximize the value of each lead. If you see that all of your highest paying clients are coming from one or two specific ads, well, that's great, because we need to spend more on those things. And then it's not just about getting more clients, it's about actually making more money from each of those clients. Your lead sources will absolutely have a lot to do with the value of those clients at the end of the day. But most people just never connect the dots. So they're always flying blind when it comes to what to do next. The easiest way to market is say, I already know what's working and I'm going to make small improvements to that, or I'm going to test one new thing based on what I already know is doing really well, instead of feeling like you have to start from scratch and go back to the drawing board every single time you put something together. So I know this is a lot that we've covered. Again, the snapshot is going to give you the structure that you need for this, but happy to answer any questions on that. We can definitely go through any questions regarding the stuff that we talked about yesterday. So happy to open it up for Q&A if you want.
Yeah. So um, I know we didn't plan for this question, but I have an ask for you. If you can't, that's okay. Um, let's say I have everything set up and I have all my tracking, UTM parameters, everything, at least let's just say at least at like a 60, 70% layer.
Mhm.
What does a client interaction look like once I have all those things? Let's say once in a month. Like, what is one of your calls with a client? Like, what does that go? What happens in one of those calls? Like,
In
can you
terms
walk us through?
of reviewing the data, is that what you're saying?
Reviewing the data or presenting a finding and or just celebrating wins or identifying a problem, like what does that customer interaction look like when reporting and data attribution is the main focal point of that call?
Yeah. So we're looking at the sheet. That's the first thing we're doing. We're pulling that up and we're saying, what does the data tell us? So we actually have several additional tabs that go with some of our spreadsheets that actually create a dashboard from this information. You can put in, here are the campaigns I'm running, the ad sets I'm running, the ads that I'm running, the different traffic sources. Here's how much I'm spending on those. And it actually calculates everything on the dashboard tab with, here's how many leads you've gotten from this. Here's how many appointments you've gotten. Here's how many sales. Here's how much money you've made from this. So that dashboard is really helpful. But we use this to really just identify best next steps. So always looking at your spreadsheet as the single source of truth is huge. If you are working with people from a paid advertising standpoint. And a lot of times that's what we're doing because, again, it's valuable no matter what, but it is very important if you are spending real money to generate this stuff. We'll look at those sheets. We'll either download them and have Claude do an analysis. So you can actually set up a Claude cowork project that runs on a schedule once a month and is analyzing the data of the spreadsheet and giving you insights and giving you a report on that. Or you can just look at it because it's going to be really easy to identify where are my appointments and where are my sales because they're in your spreadsheet row. If you see confirmed or showed appointments, if you see, yes, there's a sale, here's how much I made from this person, you're going straight to those rows and you're just looking at, here's where they came from. Here's where they came from. Okay. Do we see any trends? We use it to cross-reference what we're doing in Ads Manager. So are we actually getting what we need from all of these ads or ad sets? So this is how we determine what ads we turn off, what ad sets we turn off, what campaigns we turn off, or what we're spending more money on, because it is always going to be based on the real data. If you are just operating based on assumptions, I can guarantee you're spending money in the wrong places or you're not spending enough in the right places. And it also can be a great thing to identify no-shows. So if you've got an appointment-based sales process, you need to make sure that as many appointments as possible actually get on that call after they book. So if you see no show in a lot of those rows, you're going to look at their source as well. Where are the majority of my no shows coming from? And once again, just like with anything, you are absolutely going to see trends. You are going to see that a couple of sources tend to bring in the highest percentage of no shows. Then you can look back at that source and say, why do I think that is? So, for example, somebody that I was working with on this last week, they were seeing a lot of no-shows, but when we really looked at the data, the messaging from that ad was not clear at all in terms of who the ideal customer was. So basically, they were getting a lot of people who kind of aspired to that result, but weren't financially in a position to actually do it. And you'll see higher no-shows on things like that because this person they want it, but when they really look at it, they're like, I'm not going to be able to do this anyway. I don't want to have to tell somebody on this call that I don't have any money and I'm not going to be able to close. And so those people tend to no show at a higher rate if they were unqualified to begin with. And so it's just a great way to really analyze what you are doing based on the actual data without having to dig into all of these separate reporting tabs and appointment reports and looking at individual contacts inside the system, because that can be really time consuming if you're looking at a decent number of contacts. So this just gives us one central aggregated place to look at everything to make sure that whatever ads manager says, if it says we got X number of appointments, that's usually not accurate. Sometimes it can be slightly inaccurate. Sometimes it's really inaccurate, but you can't base your decisions off of that data because you don't know for sure that that data is reliable. Even a couple of conversions difference in what it's showing can change your cost per conversion a lot. Maybe it's way less than you actually think it is because you got 4 more conversions than what it shows. Or maybe it's way more expensive because it's showing 4 more conversions than what you got, which is going to change your cost per appointment or your cost per purchase. So really just verifying the data is a huge part of it. And then actually looking at that data to make real decisions. Like I have some of my mastermind members that this is our primary focus on a call every single week. Let's review the data. Let's make decisions based on the data. That's the conversation.
I love it. And it's really important to make sure you stay in your lane because as you put these things together for a small business, you'll discover all kinds of different areas where they need a lot of help.
Yes.
If you're a marketing person, doesn't mean you need to go solve all their sales problems, right? And vice versa. So you'll discover and unpack a lot of old things, systems that are broken. Don't get tempted to solve all their problems. And the next thing you know, you're working 80 hours for one business for the
Yeah.
same amount of retainer, right?
Yes.
So build those skills where you know how to build those boundaries with customers, whether these problems are solvable by your company or not. Does that make sense?
And it's so true, but the truth is that most businesses they've never been shown where they need this help or where things are broken. So the information that you can provide to them on its own is extremely valuable. If you can make referral relationships with people who specialize in those different things, that can become an additional source of income without you having to do anything. Get a referral commission from somebody if you pass
Yeah.
a client along, or become an affiliate of this business. And you can just say, here are the people that I know that can do this type of work for you. Here are their links. If they convert, that's on them. That relationship, that's on them. But I am going to get something for it. So you can still make money from that without it taking your time. However, if you are someone who does have skill sets in some of these other areas, there's really no better way to upsell someone, because you don't go into it trying to upsell them. You go into it trying to understand what's happening. And when you can show them with finite data, here's what's happening, it's not a sales conversation anymore. You're saying, here's what the issue is. I can help you on this. If you are interested, let me know. Here's what it looks like. If not, here's the type of thing you guys need to do internally, or here's the type of person that you need to seek out. But being able to sell based on the data it's a much different experience than trying to convince someone that they need something if they cannot see with their own eyes that the thing you're presenting is what they actually need. So it's a really good way to actually get your foot in the door sometimes, evaluate things for a 30-day period, and then actually go in with a proposal that's legit, that's really based on what they need and not based on what you think they need or what they tell you they need. Because a lot of times what they think they need is not, it's not.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to be able to counter that without seeing the data, and they're not going to know for sure without seeing the data. So it just gives everyone clarity to make better decisions. So whether you stick with just the tracking and reporting side for a business, that is an offer, that is a product, that is valuable on its own. And you basically are just advising them on here's what the data says and what you need to do next based on it. And then you can also, use that as a loss leader in a lot of ways. Like, let's get this set up for you at a price that's easy for you to swallow. Let's see what the data really says. And then let me present the other services that I can offer to you. But I'm going to do it based on what you really need, not just a whole slew of menu items and, tell you to pick, or I'm just going to throw some things out there at you.
Yeah, I love this, and I keep thinking back to like the importance of community in a scenario like this as well, right? Because you like I might be able to call Allie and ask her, "Hey, Allie, what are some of the standards of CPC that you're seeing with meta ads right now with a certain industry?" Or, "Hey, what are you seeing with SEO? Do you see a lot of changes because of AI? Do you see keywords that are not working anymore? Do you see Google Ads prices changing?" Because like it's not just the fact that you're going to inform your customers that these are the attribution numbers. It's also important that you're the source that tells them and helps them understand the standard of a certain number, right? If you're converting 30%, for example, from meta ads, well, that's probably really good compared to 30% on Google. Probably not good, right? Because you have different intent behind all those traffic pieces.
For
So connect with your fellow high levelers, people in your community, and just compare notes, compare reports of a certain area, certain industry, certain sources, and just kind of collaborate, because that's what's going to move the needle further versus like you in your own corner by yourself taking over the world. Like you're not going to go far. We'll go farther together collaborating, if you ask me.
Absolutely.
So let's do Q&A. We've got another 15 minutes left that we had slotted for this event. In the chat, I would like for you to type in the letter Q or the word question, and then put down your question. And I'm going to bring that up to the screen, and Ali will answer that, or give you a resource if she doesn't have answers to everything, of course. Let's see. I see the first one here. Someone saying, what does a premium action mean?
Yeah, it just means that it is not included with your standard HighLevel plan. There is a cost per execution on these. It's a very, very small cost. So for most businesses, like if you're not spending a ton of money on paid advertising, or you don't have thousands and thousands of leads coming in all the time, it's going to be a nominal amount. Like you're barely even going to notice it. Obviously, depending on which actions you're using and which workflows you're using them in and how many times those workflows are being executed, it is going to be an additional cost. I think for a lot of the premium actions, I think it's legitimate that they're premium because it's going to save you a lot of time. It's also going to help you get a better result than what you would get with just some of the straightforward actions. So with the spreadsheets, like that is one that it is a premium action. So if you want to use this snapshot, you have to be willing to turn that on. I personally feel like it's well worth it. But yeah, these are just they have a cost per execution to them, whereas the standard workflow steps do not.
Got it. And if you're starting out, you don't need the premium stuff, right?
Well, it depends on what you're doing. If you're somebody who really wants to focus on AI components, several of the AI workflow steps, they are premium actions. Same thing with spreadsheets. If you're dealing with a lot of data stuff, these are also premium actions. But again, it really is all about what do I need? And is this the only way to get that result? For certain things, there is a different way to do it without those. Like there's 20 different ways to get the same result on something in HighLevel. It really just depends on how you want to do it and how creative you are in certain cases. And then there are certain things where it's like, this is what it is. If I want to use this action, it is premium. And Paulson, can you remind me, is that included in the AI employee, the premium
It
action? I don't know that it is.
I don't think it is. So there are limited amounts of usage that comes with the package from what I understand. I'm also a little muddied at the moment because we're about to launch Summer of AI promotions like next week. So I know there's a lot of free stuff that's coming out. So what we're talking about is probably for like September where it's not like totally free anymore. So
Well, I
just
would say
remember,
if they've got those like where you can try them out for free at any period of time, that is absolutely the best time to check it out and say, all right, do I really need this? Do I really want this? If you start using it and it is saving you time, even something that saves you an hour in a month,
yeah.
how much is an hour worth to you? And if it's a lower cost than what an hour is worth to you, then it's worth it. So I see a lot of those as just, if I'm using a premium action, typically it's always going to give me a better outcome because I wouldn't be able to do it any other way, or it's going to save me and my team time, which has, it has a real cost to it. So I think it's so tiny. Most businesses would never even notice the cost. Obviously, if you are large, it's something you want to take a look at, but I haven't really seen anybody that really has a significant bill from premium actions, honestly.
Yeah. Big question here coming up. Hopefully, it's not too granular or just one person's case
Yeah.
scenario. I like to know how to avoid duplicates. For example, IG leads comments on a post, then they get a DM with the form, fill out the form, and since the name in IG and the one they wrote are different, a duplicate gets created with, I guess, two different account names or two different
So
names.
ultimately, if you wanted somebody who comments to actually go into the sheet, you may end up with duplicates, or I wouldn't even say duplicates because when they first comment, you don't have contact information. And the way that we're actually cross-checking people is from their email and their phone number. So if it were me, I would have a specific form that is just for, Instagram or for this specific offer on Instagram where this lead came from Instagram and the keyword that they came from. But when they actually submit the form is when I would add them to the sheet. You could have other stuff in there, but it's going to be really hard, particularly with Instagram, because it's not an actual name a lot of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll see limitations like that in different platforms. They all have their kind of quirkinesses of what they allow, what they don't allow based on terms and conditions. Typically, it's not lack of capability inside of HighLevel. It's usually a restriction from the platforms of what's allowed to be tracked or not tracked, right? We've got someone's asking, is AI personalization about the messages that are being sent, put, or the way I guess what he's asking is
Out,
if
I
it's
think,
built
or is it
in
the way the
built in
workflow
a
is out?
workflow.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So it's actually both. The personalization component, it's coming from first and foremost, what is the information that the lead has given you? Because you need those fields to be able to personalize the message. Then you're going to be able to take that information using a prompt and create the message that is sent out. So by default, the workflow will be built a different way because of it. Does AI build the messages? AI does build the messages, but you build the prompts that give AI the ability to build the messages. However, you can have AI help you create the prompts that AI uses to send the messages. So it's a little bit of all of the above. But yeah, it's a different structure of what I would say is a typical workflow. Like I don't ever see anybody with workflows set up like this. And the messages themselves, they are personalized because of the prompt and the information we've already collected.
Right. And over time this will get better because input means output, right? So whatever data or information you find from the customer is what you want to add to your systems, because eventually you'll realize, oh, they have a certain thing that they do with sales. They have a certain, like if you went to Chick-fil-A, you ever notice every single person says my pleasure after you say thank you? Like that's a SOP coding they have in their franchises, from what I understand. You are required to say my pleasure, right? So these are things that you find out about these industries, and these are details you add to your AI systems. Jason's asking, are the UTM parameters something that we create manually or is it automated?
So for the most part, it is something that you are going to create. So a UTM parameter is going to be your URL, but then there's a suffix essentially that gets added to that URL. You can create them. So for example, in Ads Manager, that UTM tracking element, it's one of the very, very last settings on the ad level, and you can build a little template for it. Okay. So it'll just say, what do you want for campaign? What do you want for medium? What do you want for content? And we're saying this is the campaign name, this is the ad set name, this is the ad name. So when you do that, that little suffix, which is basically like a tracking template, is added to your URL, but it's filled in dynamically. However, you can also like hard code UTM parameters. So you can build the little suffix that says the source is email and the campaign is client ascension and content. The content is one that I wouldn't hard code, but you can actually write your own words in there. If you do that, that's what's going to come in every single time. But if you're looking for something that you don't yet know what it's going to be, you would use tracking templates. So Meta, Google, like any of the ad platforms, they have tracking templates you can apply. For things that are organic, you just want to set up a structure for this, and you can go to like a free UTM builder. They have, just websites that you can go to. You'll put in your URL and it'll help you generate that UTM parameter that you want to use. As I mentioned, I also have like a spreadsheet where you can put in your URL. You've got drop down options. It generates that UTM for you. So it's a mixture of both. They're created automatically with a template, but you have to manually say, like, I'm using this tracking template. And then you can also do them on your own.
Love it. What is the benefit of exporting context to a Google Sheet for reporting, I guess, versus keeping the information inside of HighLevel like a dashboard?
Yeah. So I think it really comes down to where you like to review the information. But what we have found, and again, it's kind of personal preference, is that we get the full picture a lot better through the spreadsheet. Now, if you want to take the whole concept of the sheet and set that up as a custom dashboard, you definitely can. This is something that just allows us to analyze through different tools. Our teams all have access to it, but you could likely get the same result through a custom dashboard. It's just going to have to be a very custom dashboard.
Yeah. And also in the event you're doing offboarding instead of onboarding a customer, they keep the Google Sheets where if they lose access to your HighLevel account, they don't have the dashboards anymore, right? Although you can download a lot of that, but the information gets all over the place when that happens. So I'm a big fan of Sheets as like a backup And remember, a lot of the business owners are kind of old school, right? You're modern and hip with AI stuff, right?
Yeah.
They're not.
Well, and ultimately too, it comes down to, do you want a dashboard to summarize and analyze all the data for you and still have a sheet to actually show you the individual executions, the individual data? You could do something with all of the individual data if you wanted to, but I think it could be kind of a nice marriage of both of those.
Love it. Someone's asking, can you review that step where setting up a new profile will delete a bunch of settings? Well, we don't have time to go granular, but
Yeah, so it's when you connect a new Google sheet in there, but in the resources that we're going to share with you guys, it'll have those values in there. So you can just copy and paste those, or you can screenshot them because they will exist in the snapshot, or they should exist whenever you load it in. But it's when you go to reconnect that's going to reset them. But we'll make sure that you guys have that data to be able to plug it in.
got it. Michael's asking, do you have a sample of the touch point attribution, or is it just pure data, like a 30,000-foot view?
So if you're talking about the stuff that we referenced in terms of what happens between the first attribution and the last attribution, that's kind of what I'm gathering from like the touch point attribution. Um, the data comes down to how you are tracking those things. So if you are tagging people when they do certain actions, you could just go in your contacts tab and, sort through your tags and identify how many of my clients have this specific tag, or how many of clients have this specific tag. Or you could just export all your client data and you could analyze that specific tags field to identify like what are the most common tags that your clients have. You could go, manually into your contacts and review all the different touch points. You could put people in different tracking workflows and you could add it to a sheet. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can do it. So it really is just pure data unless you do something with it. And depending on what you do, it'd be a different way you're actually going to review that. So again, I think tags are super, super easy to use. They don't require creating a bunch of new fields. You can do it on the fly really easily. You can sort and filter for those very easily in the contacts. And so basically we kind of see that as like, what's inside the sandwich. You've got your first and last attribution is like the bread, everything else that happens in the middle. It really matters, but you don't have to know the exact order that somebody did those things in order for it to be really valuable. If you do want to know that, that would require a lot of, custom tracking setup, which for some people might be super, super valuable, but it really just kind of depends on, are you going to use this data? How do you plan on using this data? And what's the easiest way for you to implement this based on what your current structure already looks like, without having to kind of like redesign everything?
Yes. And a question on just housekeeping. Replays. All the replays are available on all the channels. There's a snapshot that Allie's team is providing. There might be small little updates to it that their team might go through later today and update. So just so you know, like someone's asking, was there any difference in what you shared already versus not? Seems like there might have been a step that might have been missed or something that could
I
have
would
been
have to see
added.
I would have to see the link that you guys shared, but I'll go back and double check it because we have ultimately like 3 different snapshots that we kind of consolidated into the workshop
Sure.
snapshot. So I'll go back and make sure and we'll
Okay.
refresh that, and I'll just double check on that link. And then, Paulson, I'll shoot you a link that you could share out for like the
Yeah.
resource docs. So if they want those, they can request those there.
Perfect. We got 2 more minutes, so we're gonna go real quick. What is the biggest change in traffic you've seen since AI has become more mainstream?
So I don't necessarily know if I would say that I feel like it's been a change in traffic necessarily. I definitely do think that more people are getting search referrals from AI. That would be probably the biggest thing I've noticed traffic wise. From what we've seen on the paid ad side of things, it's not so much that it's a traffic change, it's more of we now have the ability to do things faster, easier, and better because of AI as compared to what we would have done in the past. So a lot of the platforms do have different AI features and AI elements and settings that you can add. Some of them are worth using, some of them are not worth using. But I do think that as a whole, being able to develop new copy, new creative, new angles, analyze data faster, that is a massive improvement across any traffic source that you're using. If you're doing like cold outreach, direct outreach, things like that. It's AI has made that easier as well. I think the biggest shift really is the actual organic search component versus people using AI platforms to do research and actually go to those links directly from a chat.
Got it. So, Allie, let's stop right there. I just want to say thank you to you from our high level leadership team as well as the community. This has been a quite busy season for you,
Yeah,
and we're
definitely.
so grateful that you didn't, change anything on us as far as the timing and dates of when we are going to do this workshop. We had it in the works for a long time. You're in the middle of a lot of personal stuff that's happening. So we're super grateful. We appreciate you. Where can people find you? I know you have a really big community, massive following, and a lot of momentum in your world. I would love to just kind of help people understand how they can engage with you even deeper
Yeah.
here.
Absolutely. So right now you can find me at alliebloyd.com. You can find me at Allie Bloyd or Allie Bloyd Media on pretty much any channel. As I mentioned yesterday, we are about to rebrand. So you will see Allie Way, and my new last name in about, I'd say a month and a half, is going to be Stivers. So that will be a difference. But for right now, all of those links, all of those profiles, they are still there. You can definitely find me very easily. We will have, redirects and things like that set up moving forward. So we'll make sure that it's easy to find me. But I would love to connect with any of you. If you guys have questions, happy to help. Definitely, if you were looking for help on any of this stuff in particular, we have a variety of options. But really, just love the community, love giving back to the community. Very excited to hopefully see what some people do with the information that we've gone over the last couple of days. So, yeah, feel free to reach out, connect, send me a DM, and I'd love to chat.
I love it. And likewise, like I would love to follow some of you in your journey as you're building your businesses and stuff like that. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at Paulson Speaks or LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever. Love to stay connected. I'll see you either in person or another virtual event pretty soon. But thanks again, Allie. Appreciate it. Have a
Yes,
good one.
absolutely. Bye, everybody.